I'd like to call to order the June 25th, 2020 business meeting and ask our county administrator to please take the roll. Gary Schmidt.
Thank you, Chair. Our staff support today is Mary Rathke, Clerk to the Board, Stephen Madcore, County Counsel. Roll call, Chair Bernard.
Here.
Commissioner Fisher.
Here.
Commissioner Humberston.
Here.
Commissioner Schrader.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Here.
Please join me in a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And we are holding this meeting virtually. If you join us on Zoom app for this meeting and you are interested in providing public comment, we will prompt you regarding how to do that when the time is right. You also have the option of providing your comments via comments live or via email, and you can do that at clacconews@clackamas.us. And be sure to include your name and area, I guess area where you live. And you'll be prompted and brought in by staff when the time is right. Our first item is what, Gary?
Is COVID-19 updates. We begin with Nancy Bush, Director of Disaster Management and Incident Commander of our Emergency Operations Center, joined by Dr. Sarah Present, Clackamas County's Public Health Medical Director and the County Health Officer. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So to go over our numbers today, in the state of Oregon, we have 7,444 positives. That is up 170 from yesterday. 195 deaths, 206 negatives, 206,564 negatives. The county has 640 positives, which is up 8 from yesterday. We have 24 deaths now, which is up 1, 20,082 negatives. Multnomah County has 1,938 positive, 45 of those are new, 68 deaths, 44,189 negatives. Washington County is at 1,151 positives, which is up 31, 20 deaths, 27,762 negatives. And we now have a statewide 89 hospitalized, which is down just a few from what I reported on Tuesday. Just to remind everyone, the governor's face covering mandate went into effect yesterday, which we are following here in Clackamas County and public buildings as well. Our public information officer here did a segment with KGW on the topic just yesterday, along as with some other counties. We are finalizing an intergovernmental agreement with Washington County for isolation rooms, which is one of the things that we need to meet from phase 1. So after we get that done, we'll be very comfortably, I think, with enough isolation rooms for Clackamas County. We do have some, obviously, that we've had since the beginning, but we needed to add a few. There are 100 food boxes that are going to Bridging Cultures this week, and there is a drive of food distribution in Sandy, I believe, this morning. We also had a call this week with the state regarding the $10 million that the e-board has slated for businesses, small businesses, and helping with them. We discussed how we would use those dollars if it was given to us directly here at the county. The state is still discussing how they are going to distribute those funds, and we're hoping to hear something from them very soon. One of the things that we've been working on here in our liaison section is a donations page. And Dylan, if you could bring that up for me. So on this page, we were experiencing residents and families that are having hardships, and we also are experiencing people who want to donate and want to help our communities with food, non-food items, and other things like hygiene, cleaning, childcare supplies, etc. So we have developed this donate page where we can connect our CBOs, which are community-based organizations, to those who would like to donate. So if we'll take a look at the map, you can click on up. If you click on the map, you will be able to see all of those that are CBOs that are taking donations. And so if you want to give a donation, you can go to this page. If you click on the name on the map, for example, if you clicked on Gladstone Senior Center, it will bring up the information regarding the Gladstone Senior Center, the types of donations that they're looking for, who they serve, etc. And so, and if they take monetary donations, etc. So we would really like for the general public to take a look at this. And if you are wanting to make a donation, you can go here and see what kind of donations are needed and who is needing those donations in order to serve our communities. Thank you, Dylan.
What's the exact link?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, the exact link.
It's clackamas.us.
Thank you.
It's clackamas.us/coronavirus/donations.
Thank you. And if you go to the county's main page and you click on COVID-19, it will come up there too. You can click on a donations box.
Hey, Dylan, I couldn't write that as fast as you can say it. Can you repeat that?
Of course, Commissioner. It's clackamas.us/coronavirus. So off our main coronavirus page, and then /donations.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking that. So we also do have our new public health indicators for monitoring COVID-19, and Dylan is going to bring that up for us as well. We received this data yesterday, late in the day. And we do have, you'll notice, of course, we still have the Clackamas, Multnomah, and Washington County line there, and we have 4 indicators there that we are not meeting. If you look at Clackamas County, we still have 2 that we're not meeting, but one of those has changed. Last week, it was the percent of cases in the last 7 days had fallen to 90%. Which now has come back up to 97.3%. And then now the percent of cases not traced to known source in the last 7 days is the one that was checked that last week and is checked this week. Dylan, if you don't mind going down, we can look at Multnomah County and Washington County. So for Multnomah County, they have 4 that they are not meeting. And for Washington County, they have 3 at this time that they are not meeting. So again, we are tethered together with those 2 counties, which of course is what we were seeing in the earlier line. And Dylan, you'll bring us back up. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Sarah Present now. And we'll leave this up just for a couple minutes for Dr. Present to reference as well.
Thank you. Good morning, commissioners. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me again. I do want to just address this data a little bit and these trends. As we reopen and have an increase in cases, and we've talked a lot about how some increase is expected. I actually do like these metrics a lot because the balance of them does help sort of paint a picture of what's happening with disease spread in our county, in the region, and the state. And I'm not surprised that a number of our indicators are kind of teeter-tottering back and forth, because a lot of them are closely connected as far as, when there are increased cases, if they are within outbreaks, if they are not within outbreaks. That tells us a lot about disease spread. And the percent positive of cases and the severity of cases. I can go into lots of details about it, but I'm not surprised to see the indicators going up and down. And I think that they're good indicators so that when we are have the green check mark on all of them, we can feel pretty good that we're going in a good direction with disease spread. Until then, I think we can really expect ups and downs in the different indicators week to week. Oh, hi, Dylan. Okay, so a couple of details on this. The ED-like visits are going up a little bit in the region. Our percent positive says no trend here. It's up in the region. We're noted at 4% in Clackamas, 4% of the of the tests done come back positive. Washington and Multnomah are both at 5%. So the goal is really a good indicator of good disease control is to be less than 5%. So we're kind of, as a region, at that teetering mark. Clackamas is in the 4 range, so we're close to that as well. The percent increase in new cases, I'll talk a little bit more about that. I do see that we have a green check mark in the downtrend of hospitalizations. In the last week, from the 17th to 23rd, Tuesday through Tuesday, very, very preliminary data from our cases and our epidemiologist is that we've had 93 new cases in that time frame in Clackamas. Sorry, I'm a little bit all over the place. About 40% of those, 34 of them, or 37%, are not linked to an outbreak or another known case, so those are sporadic. And that's been pretty consistent. The last several weeks, we've had about 40% that are sporadic cases. 14 of those are either household contacts to known cases or other neighborhood or family close contacts, just not in the same household. And then 48% of them are among known outbreaks. In that same time frame, we've had 11 new outbreaks that have been reported to the state. Again, long-term care facilities, we will make an outbreak number and report it with just one known case in a staff or resident. So of those 11, 6 of them were long-term care facilities, and 5 were other workplaces, small workplaces such as, various other businesses. Of the 93 cases, we were unable to reach 8 of them. 1 refused an interview, and as of last night, 10 had not yet received their interview. And in that same time frame, we've identified 214 cases that are now being tracked daily through our new our new technology on contact tracing. So they are getting a phone call or a text every day to check on their symptoms, and that is something that has been re-implemented in the last 2 weeks. So something interesting, we've had a big increase in numbers of cases. We've had a big increase in numbers of cases in long-term care facilities. And when I go back to that number of the hospitalizations and talk about severe illness, we've also had a big increase in death. And I do want to note that we've had several deaths in our long-term care facility outbreaks that choose not to be hospitalized. So I think that's something for all of us to be thinking about as we look at these metrics, and looking at severity of disease and disease control is really, as our elderly and our long-term care facility population is one of our most vulnerable. And I think that all of our long-term care facilities are just doing an absolutely amazing job at doing everything they can to protect our citizens. And the disease does spread, and they are, in Oregon, as with the rest of the country, it's nearly a 30% risk of death if you're over the age of 80, and we are seeing that. Okay. So even though we have a lot of new cases, we still have 40% that are sporadic. So we have a lot of new cases in long-term care facilities, yes, but we also have a lot of new cases that are sporadic and not linked to other outbreaks at this point. We are now up to over 30 public health staff. The last week has really been managing a lot of the growing pains of kind of a rapid and massive expansion of our public health infrastructure. And so we are still working on that, but we have a lot of really amazing dedicated staff, and there's just a lot going on. It's been a busy week, and I will stop with that and take any questions.
Paul?
Yeah, well, thank you, Nancy and Dr. President, for your presentation. Obviously things are very dynamic, as you stated. It changes constantly, and I think sometimes our talking points just sometimes need to be revisited. Because a week ago we were under the impression that if we continued doing nothing, that we would see 1,000 cases a day by the end of next week or the end of this week. And certainly we're not on that trend. I think you can agree to that. We're not on that 1,000 case trend or path. But I did want to point out, between last Thursday discussion amongst us all and today, that counts that I've got, And again, depends on where you're looking to start. So, the numbers I have is that Washington County had 201 cases in the last 7 days as of this moment. 306 in Multnomah County, and Clackamas had 114 cases since we last discussed this that I have information to. So that's all data that I got from the OHA website. I know last week, Dr. President, you were posed with a question, and I think you couched it correctly from a health standpoint. I wouldn't disagree with your comment, but from the strategy of the governor or the OHA and the governor and the state, our strategy is that as we open, we knew case counts would go up, and the whole idea was to keep hospital admissions, under control, so we make sure we have hospital capacity. So in that context, which is a different context from a health standpoint, because if we have a health standpoint, we just lock up everything and just shut down every business, and all be lock ourselves in our homes. But that's not what the plan is in the state. The plan is in the state is to reopen and to balance the economy and all the activity and the health and everything. So in that mixture and that strategy, which I understand and I don't disagree with, and I think I kind of characterized that pretty well in my letter I sent to the governor on Tuesday. But I just wanted to make that comment that if we are, I think it's fair in the future that if we are going to be, whether, and I guess I understand that you were asked that question specifically, but I think we have to put everything back in the context again. So that I think I wanted just to point that out, that the overall strategy is more about hospital admissions and keeping hospital capacities. And certainly we want as least people to fall ill with the illness. And of course, we don't want any deaths at all. But we're, again, abiding by the state strategy. What I did want to talk about a little bit, I addressed this in my letter to the governor that I sent Tuesday afternoon about long-term care facilities. And the response I got back from we got back from our Thursday letter last week from the governor was that he cited the long-term care facility in Canby that had about 90, at that particular day, about 99 cases. And I had thought, after looking deeper into the Lynn County situation at their veterans facility, I'm not sure if that was state licensed or not, but I was under the impression that, knowing that a lot of these long-term care facilities or senior care facilities are licensed by the state, that the state would be leading by example and trying to advance the best precautions possible within those facilities, knowing that some of them are state-run facilities and some of them are private-run facilities, but still, they're still licensed by the state. But I'm just shocked that in the letter from the governor that they would cite a facility that they license and have those numbers count against the counties in which those facilities are in. And I think the same goes for prisons. And I do understand, obviously, there's people that go in and out of there that work there. Yes, that applies to prisons in private and state-run facilities. But to some degree, I can see why you wouldn't want to. We would not want to count that. But the same token is if we are actually exercising every precaution because they are state licensed facilities, because we get involved as our public health agency when there's an outbreak. By that time it's too late to some degree. But at the same token, we are at least implementing our contact tracing and keeping that down to a minimum. So I just think that they ought to be parsed out, which I've been saying for like a number of things ought to be parsed out, as I've been saying for over 3 weeks now. And I appreciate you and you giving us that data about the sporadic and the percentages. That's helpful. But I think the parsing out ought to go a little bit deeper into the analysis to make sure that what we're seeing out there in the county and the community, what's out there, whether it's sporadic or whether it's family related or whatever those connections are, that we are looking at it in more detail so we can actually get a better idea. But there's a lot of data out there, so I appreciate everything that has been done, but I just wanted to cite that. Thank you.
All right. I see Sonia.
Thank you, Dr. President and Nancy, for being here for all of our meetings. So was it the last time we had the discussion? Gosh, now the days are moving together. But Dr. President, I had asked you if you supported the region moving together, moving forward, and you said that you did. And now, as I studied the numbers this morning, I see that our numbers are less than the region. There's one that's 41 indicator, it's about 41%, and one indicator for us at 16%. And so I'm just wondering if your position is that you still support us moving together as in reopening as a region, and what factors you're basing that recommendation on.
So I will be honest with you that yes, I still support moving forward as a region at this point. And if we get to a point where I feel that our public health ability to really have a handle and control disease spread is significantly different than the other counties in our region, I will certainly let you know. At this point, we have numbers that are reassuring. Again, they go up and down each week depending on what we get that week. And I think we as a public health system are getting closer every day and improving, but are still working on making sure that we actually have a control and understanding of the disease spread that makes it safer to keep moving forward so that we can keep some management of the epidemic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jim, you're muted.
Ken and then Martha.
Yes, mine will be short. Nancy, would you send me those most recent statistics, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Martha?
Okay, so I do understand the reason why we get lumped together as a region, because we are the tri-county area. The inconsistency I am most concerned about is the revenue streams that are being directed to the region are not equitable. So we essentially are doing a better job, in my opinion, with less resources. And I'm concerned about that because to me, it's a real fairness issue. If we are going to be considered part of a region, then we need to get the same level of funding as our other two counties, and that is not happening. So if we're going to go in a regional direction, which I know our businesses are very, very upset. I understand why they're upset. I think that following all the protocols they're supposed to be. But if we cannot get the same level of dollars to help our businesses and to help our community as the other two, I have a real issue with that. And I know you've talked to the governor numerous times about this, Jim, and I hope you keep pushing it because this is not right. Thank you.
May
Right.
I clarify my statement?
Sure.
My support of the regional movement is really based only on disease spread, and the fact there may be part of me that just feels like we as a county are not ready to move forward. Therefore, I'm going to just be honest and transparent and maybe say that I think that my feelings that we as a county are not ready to move forward may be coloring my opinions on regional versus not. I do think that the disease is spread regionally. I do know that we have a lot of work sites with employees in all three counties, and there's a lot of interaction in where the cases are and who's being exposed. But from an economic and a business standpoint, I just want to acknowledge that is a different discussion, really. And I think that just as disease spread, that's my standpoint as the public health officer. But it mostly is coming from I don't feel like we as the county are ready to reopen any further yet.
And Dr. President, you're the expert and we respect your opinion and I agree with it. I understand how fluid transmission is with these kinds of, that's why it's called a pandemic, I guess. My concern is, as I said, that other piece, that if we are going to treat it as a region, as I said, then we need the additional resources to help the people here in our county directly. And I'm certainly never will question your medical expertise. I'm not a physician. I know enough biology to be dangerous. I'm well aware of that. You know, I know a lot about bees, okay? I know that. I get that. But my concern is it's not in any way questioning the medical reasons behind this, because it is fluid. We share borders, we share work sheds. That's the reality of it. I understand that. I'm just pushing back that if we are going to do this with our business community, who is a totally different discussion, but they're so worried, then we need to be able to give them some more relief. And we can't do that unless we get additional revenue from the governor. That's really to me, it's that disconnect there. It's not a disconnect with understanding why you as our expert is saying, no, we have to do this. It's the safest way to go. And I need to be able to explain that to our constituency. And that's basically, okay. But thank you. Thank you for everything you do. You're a goddess, okay?
All right, Ken?
I just wanted to say that I absolutely agree with Martha on that. I think the lack of resources is almost criminal. And if there is a way to be more aggressive in getting the state to cut loose with the money so we can help our people, I'm on board with that. And if we can brainstorm that a little bit to see if there's some other things that we haven't done that we could do, I'd like to help on that. So I'll leave it at that.
Paul? Paul, you're on mute.
So I don't know if my colleagues read the letter I sent to the governor, but I kind of try to capture all those points. And as I mentioned here recently, I think that if we're going to get community buy-in and we're going to maintain that social contract of all of us taking responsibility, I think that all of us, not just Clackamas County, but all of us in the state officials, every elected official, I think we need to be focused on following the strategy that we claim we are putting into play. And that's why, you know, on one hand, Dr. President's opinion and other health officials and experts are weighing these things, right? I mean, we're striking a balance, and that is the state strategy. But the optics of us straying from that strategy are terrible. And I think these numbers and all the numbers up to this point, in some regards, put us all and the community, frankly, at greater risk. We have to demonstrate by example that we're following our own guidelines. And so that's more of a message to everyone than it is to any of us that are in this meeting at this moment.
I don't understand what you're saying. We are following the guidelines. What are you referring to?
Well, that's why I started this brief part of my conversation here with, if you read my letter to the governor, I'm asking for the data. The governor said this is a data-driven strategy and process. So I'm asking for the data that was used to make that determination. Those determinations last week, all of them that the state did. And then what I'm saying is that it doesn't appear. I'm trying to find the rationale. It doesn't appear that the state followed the data that it put in place, the system it put in place, the strategy it put in place.
All right, I got it.
Okay.
All right. Anything else? Sonia?
Yeah, so Paul, I was interested in that same answer. And last Tuesday, when we talked about it, I had asked if the commission wanted to have Dr. President go through the translation of the 17, I believe, page report, which was the science that was based on the forecast that showed the 1,000 cases anticipated today, which is what I understand is her rationale. And the commission didn't seem interested in having Dr. President do that translation for us. And I am certainly not going to ask that for myself. And Chair Bernard gave his list of reasons from his communications with the governor's office, and the commission seemed to be okay with the information we had. So I think the information is there. I tried to understand that 17-page report. I couldn't do it, but you probably might be able to do better at that.
Yeah, the OHA website, there is so much data there. And if you look at all the data sets, which I know our staff are doing, I know that people are doing, even the public is doing that. Businesses are looking at that. People with expertise are looking at that. You know, a lot of eyes are on this. So I think the 17-page report captures that. But if you look at it every day, it'll be just like a report card. I mean, it's the numbers are just flow easily for me, and I understand it and I'm following it. So it's always good to stay on top of it as best one can. And after a while, it just becomes a daily thing. I just feel I'm pretty informed. Not as informed perhaps as our staff, but I feel pretty informed. And that's why I sent the letter. That's why I made the statements. That's why I'm making the statements. I'm basing that on the information that I've searched on the sites.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. President and Nancy, for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary, what's on the agenda next?
All right, first, Commissioners, a public hearing, second reading of ordinance number 05-2020, amending County Code Chapter 2.15, County Internal Auditor. Jody Cochran, our Chief Audit Executive, will present as soon as she's in the room.
There we go. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Again, for the record, my name is Jody Cochran. I am the county's Chief Audit Executive. And for a brief background for this request and recommendation today, I'd just like to read the staff report. The County Internal Audit function was established by the board in 2015 when it authorized the appointment of the County Internal Auditor and approved the Internal Audit Charter. County Internal Audit is an independent function designed to add value and help Clackamas County achieve its objectives by bringing a systematic, disciplined approach to evaluating and improving the effectiveness of governance, risk management, and control processes. County Internal Audit independence is enhanced by a dual reporting structure. The County Internal Auditor, its Chief Audit Executive, reports administratively to the elected County Treasurer and functionally to the Internal Audit Oversight Committee. This structure encourages unrestricted and direct access to all things Clackamas County. It also supports a service environment free from conditions that may threaten my ability to maintain objectivity. The value of this independence and objectivity is crucial. The Institute of Internal Auditors, the international standards for the professional practice of internal auditing, require that the internal audit function, quote, have freedom from conditions that threaten the ability of the internal audit activity to carry out internal audit responsibilities in an unbiased manner, end quote. This includes protections in place to safeguard the audit organization. 8 of 8 current local city and county audit shops have governance established within their code or their county code. These include Multnomah County, Washington County Metro, City of Portland, Clark County, Washington, Deschutes County, Jackson County, and Lane County. The Clackamas County Internal Audit function is not designated in code. The Internal Audit Oversight Committee approved the proposed language codifying this resource at its May 6, 2020 meeting and recommended the code amendment be presented to you for consideration. This matter was brought to you at the May 12, 2020 board policy session, and a first reading was heard at the June 11, 2020 board business meeting. I respectfully request that the board hold a public meeting for the second reading of this ordinance and adopt the proposed ordinance 05-2020. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing and ask if anyone would like to testify on this matter.
Thank you, Chair Bernard. I'm Dylan Blaylock with Public and Government Affairs, and I'll be coordinating both public comment for this specific public hearing and later on for general comment. If any attendees would like to provide a comment specific to this public hearing, amending the county code regarding the county internal auditor, you can do so now by utilizing the raise hand feature on Zoom. I don't believe we have anybody on the phone. No, we don't. Again, we'll open up public comment on any topic related to county business in a little while, but if you have a comment related to the code change, please select the raise hand button now. Seeing none, Chair.
All right, we'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we read the ordinance by title only.
Second.
It's been moved and second that we read the ordinance by title only. And I'd ask the clerk to poll us.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Humberston,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
and Chair Bernard.
Aye, motion carries. Ask the clerk to read the ordinance by title only.
Okay, this is ordinance number 05-2020, an ordinance amending the Clackamas County Code by adding chapter 2.15, County Internal Auditor.
Thank you, Mary, and I'd ask for a motion to adopt the ordinance.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt ordinance number 05-2020, amending County Code, Chapter 2.15, County Internal Auditor.
Is there a second? Okay, Paul, did you have a question?
Well, I do have a question maybe for the administrator. Gary, to take next steps, I understand maybe that there's a path that will not impact the general fund to maybe bring in a second auditor.
Yes, my intent is to bring a second FTE to the internal audit function during the upcoming fiscal year that will not impact the general fund. Yes.
Okay. Just ballpark, does anyone, maybe the treasurer or yourself, have any idea when that person might be onboarded?
Nope, but I'll let you know as soon as possible.
Okay, great. I just have it's a general audit question for either Jody or the treasurer. And that is that how do we assure that in the audit committee, not the audit committee structure, that the outside citizen appointees are truly independent and have no bias or have no connection to anyone from the county?
And thank you, Commissioner Savas. I appreciate that. So just to clarify, no relationship to the county. When you refer to that, you mean county government. I would hope that we would have residents of Clackamas County represented on this oversight committee. And to your question, that membership is going to be a new addition, right? So we talked about that. So we are designing that structure now as far as being able to receive applications, vet those applications, and determine that we do have the best level of breadth of skill and knowledge represented, as well as that independence. That's critical and crucial to me. And so we are investigating the possibility of independent statements, as well as just developing a good system to vet those applicants before we bring them on. Brian, is there's anything else you'd like to add?
No, Jody, you hit it on the head. I mean, I think the big thing is we'll also ask for any conflict of interest or things of that nature, that they point those out right away so that we can ensure the most transparent and best applicants that we have. That, as you guys may know, I'm on the Oregon Department of Education Audit Committee, and they have and Jody's on other committees as well, and we're going to be plagiarizing as much information from those applications as we can, and those are pretty thorough, just to ensure that we're getting a good a highly skilled financial person with that background, as well as somebody who's independent in terms of just from the county government that can provide kind of that holistic view and input on the audit plan, audit strategy, audit reports, things like that.
Yeah, I raise this in general because, I think we ought to be looking perhaps at how people are appointed to any committee, frankly. I don't think that we're one to look for people that are angry towards the county or are very friendly towards the county. We ought to be looking for people that don't have a bias and don't have a relationship. And I know that just looking around the region and other governments, they often pick the people that are the friendliest to them. I don't think that's good government.
I think that's one of the scores we have, isn't it?
Pardon?
I said that's one of the scores. You get 10 points if you're friendly. All right, well, thank you. It's been moved and second, and I'll ask the clerk to please poll us.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Humberston,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Chair Bernard.
Aye, motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very
And
much.
thank you. Good job. Next is the consent agenda. I'd ask the clerk to read the consent agenda.
Okay, today's consent agenda. Under Health, Housing, and Human Services, approval of a local subrecipient grant agreement with Northwest Family Services for Casa Esperanza culturally specific domestic violence shelter services. Approval of a local subrecipient grant agreement with Northwest Family Services to provide a bilingual Help Me Grow liaison. Approval of a local subrecipient grant agreement number 2 with Northwest Family Services for student resource coordination. Approval of a change order number 3 between Clackamas County and Aiken Moisen Associate Architects for the Sandy Health Clinic project. Approval of amendment number 3 to the intergovernmental subrecipient agreement with Canby Adult Center to provide Older Americans Act services for Clackamas County residents. Let me move up here a little bit. Approval of an agreement with Oregon Department of Transportation Rail and Public Transit Division for FDA 5311 Rural Transportation Funds for COVID-related operations for Mount Hood Express. Approval of amendment number 12 to the intergovernmental agreement with the state of Oregon, acting by and through its Oregon Health Authority for operation as a local public health authority for Clackamas County. Approval of amendment number 9 to the intergovernmental agreement with the state of Oregon, acting by and through its Oregon Health Authority for operation as a local public health authority for Clackamas County. Under the Department of Transportation and Development, we have approval of a board order approving solid waste management fee adjustments, approval of a supplemental project agreement number 34089 with Oregon Department of Transportation for the Clackamas Connection Integrate Corridor Management Project. Under our Finance Department, approval of a lease for 16201 Southeast McLaughlin Boulevard with CGF Family Limited Partnerships for the Oak Grove Library. Approval of a lease for the Clackamas County Extension and 4-H Service District building with Clackamas County. Approval of a resolution for a Clackamas County transfer of appropriations for fiscal year 2019-2020. Approval of a contract with NTA Contracting for the Southeast 90th Avenue reconstruction project. Under elected officials, oops, went too far. Approval of an intergovernmental agreement, number 1, between Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, the City of Portland, and Clackamas County Sheriff's Office for the Transit Police Services. Under County Council, approval of a designation of newspaper for the 2020 property tax foreclosure publication. Under the Department of Human Resources, approval of the labor contract between Clackamas County and Clackamas County Federation of Parole and Probation Officers. Under Business and Community Services, approval of Willamette Falls Legacy Project, Willamette Falls Trust Grant Agreement by Metro, the City of Oregon City, Clackamas County, and Willamette Falls Trust. Under County Administration, approval of amendment to the intergovernmental agreement with the state of Oregon related to funding for a future county courthouse. Under North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, approval of amendment number 3 to the interagency agreement between North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District and Health, Housing, and Human Services, Social Services Division, approval of a grant agreement with North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District and the State of Oregon Marine Board as part of the Maintenance Assistant Program for fiscal year 2020-2021, approval of a stewardship agreement 20SA110606000004 between North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District and the USDA Forest Service Mount Hood National Forest for the Rock Creek Project. And under Water Environment Services, approval of Amendment Number 1 to an intergovernmental agreement between Water Environment Services and Clackamas Community College for watershed education and a renewable energy and watershed interpretative public art mural project. And that completes today's consent agenda. Yay.
No, I'm just kidding. So with that, I'll entertain a motion, or does anyone wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Seeing none with that, go ahead, Sonia.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, I didn't want to necessarily remove an item, but I had a couple comments. Do you want me to wait?
Oh, please.
Okay. So there are two things on this consent agenda that I wanted to highlight. And one is under D1 is the approval of intergovernmental agreement amendment number 1 between Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon TriMet and City of Portland and Clackamas County Sheriff's Office for Transit Police Services. We all heard from the sheriff and undersheriff on Tuesday, answered a lot of questions that they can answer for us. I did give Undersheriff Brandon Berg a request for racial breakdown of our Clackamas County interactions within the transit service and what to see if there are any disparities in how we look at things. I don't have that information as of now. I did want to say two things. First of all, in these materials, this is a question for Stephen, so Stephen might want to turn around. Thank you, Stephen. The intergovernmental agreement is with Jamie Resch with the City of Portland. She's no longer the police chief, and I don't believe they are entering into this contract. So I just wanted to make sure that our public notice requirements and information that we're providing is okay.
Yes, they are.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that because I noticed that. And then the second thing I want to highlight is that this intergovernmental agreement extends a current contract to look at the entire transit police and come up with a new agreement. So I had the honor and privilege of testifying yesterday before the TriMet board on its budget, and my testimony was in regard to ride connection and seniors, people with disabilities. As we all know, we have transportation reaching people, and that's a very critically important program to Clackamas County. So I testified on that, but I heard many, many comments of people testifying before TriMet that are very concerned, very legitimate concerns about transit police. So I just wanted to share that with my colleagues. I am planning on supporting this today because I, for one, don't want to see dramatic changes in Clackamas County to what we need to make sure that we're protecting the safety of our residents. And I trust Sheriff Roberts and Undersheriff Brandenburg that they're going through a process to determine what these services are going to look like in 6 months. I'm also feel confident that we have been ahead of the game when it comes to getting our contract with the Coalition of Communities of Color, and we are beginning an engagement process for the entire county to look at racial disparities. So we're on the path. So I just wanted to make those comments about that. And then I'm so sorry for taking so much time, but this consent agenda is kind of meaty. I also wanted to just the FAPO contract, which is the Federation. Stephen, I may need you to help me with what that stands for. What is the exact acronym?
I believe it's the Federation of Parole and Probation Officers.
Excellent. I didn't want to get parole and probation intertwined in my in the PP of that acronym. But as my commission knows, at the end of this, when you go through bargaining, you go through a very long process of making sure that you get agreement on the different elements. And we did ask the president of FAPO to consider adding to the contract this language. FAPO and Clackamas County recognizes that systematic racism exists throughout governmental institutions. Collectively, we embrace the opportunity to work together with the coalition of communities of color and others to develop strategies to eradicate racism in Clackamas County. And I have to say that while we are not including this exact language in the contract, I really want to say thank you to Eric, who's our collective bargainer. Is that our word, Stephen?
He's our labor negotiator.
Our labor negotiator. As a
Correct.
lawyer, I should know that that's what Eric is.
And FAPO technically is the Federation of Oregon Parole and Probation Officers.
Thank you.
Yep.
So Eric reported back to us that while the union president, Ms. Cloyes, did not want the language in this contract, she was very open to having further discussions with the county and with other union leaders about the policy that would apply to all county employees. So I just want to say, yay, County Commission. We started this discussion and it's really, really positive. And so with that, I want to pass it on over to Administrator Schmidt to say, what can we do with the policy in this regard?
Yes, Commissioner, you or I can implement a countywide policy that impacts every employee, not just our represented employees. And I intend to do just that with the language you have proposed and flesh it out a bit more about how we, as an organization, support the values of equity, diversity, and inclusion in Clackamas County. And the new Office of Equity and Inclusion that I hope to be up and running next month in July, that can be one of the first initiatives that that team works on. So absolutely, commissioners, we will work on this coming up in the next month or two.
Nice. So thank you so much. And with that, I will support this consent agenda. And I mean, everybody, colleagues, I really appreciate you and your thoughtfulness in these very important discussions. Thank you.
All right, Martha, then Ken. Martha, your mic's on.
I want to thank you, Commissioner Fisher, for all this work. When do we expect to get the information from Sub-Sheriff Brandenburg, future Sheriff Brandenburg, about the racial breakdown? Did she give you a time and a date for that?
No, but she did. She's a person of her word. I know that. She will get that to us, and we just have to have this lens to really ask the questions. So
yeah,
I expect it.
The other question I'd like to have staff investigate, I believe there was a young TriMet, one of the folks who's been shot in the head and who is now in ICU and not doing well. I'd like somebody to look into that because that violence it was a young fellow. He was part of the TriMet police, evidently. And I'd like to verify that because I think that we have to be cognizant that we are in a time when violence can overtake anybody or anybody. And I'm really concerned about that too. So I'm concerned about the people that ride TriMet. I'm also concerned about the folks who, so could we get somebody on that to verify that? Because I was really disturbed by that. The youngster, he looked like he was 28, years old. I mean, it's not a happy situation. The other thing is I really appreciate the fact that we're going to look at this piece, not just with one particular union, but we're going to look at it systematically. And that really is the reason why we have the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Department under Gary, is so we can frame these issues so that value set is really kind of set throughout the organization too. And whether or not we have to put it in language in a contract, for me, if the language is there as a part of our systemic culture, that's really the most critical thing for me, is to make sure that happens. So thank you for that. And if somebody can follow up on that other piece, I'd appreciate it. And I'd really like to see the incidents that we have dealt with on TriMet, or if there have been any, or what the level of involvement has been. Thank you. Okay.
All right, Ken.
Yes, I want to touch bases on Commissioner Fisher's discussions regarding Metro, or TriMet, I should say, excuse me. There are some cities, both in the United States and in Europe, that are experimenting with the idea of having public transportation be completely free. Our current public transportation system is about 85% tax subsidized already. Fares do not cover the cost by any stretch of the imagination, and in fact, if they did, most people couldn't afford to ride it on a regular basis. There were 15,000 tickets written last year in the TriMet system. Plus, I think we heard from the Sheriff's Department something around 1,000 other law enforcement contacts. I believe that of those 15,000 tickets, some of those probably escalated as a result of a confrontation of one kind or another into something worse than just a ticket for not having your fare. If we want to reduce the number of contacts between citizens and authority figures, one option would be to have no charge for fares on TriMet's system and have it completely tax subsidized. Then the TriMet police, whoever has that contract, would only be focused on actual criminal behavior and threatening behavior to other citizens on that system. So I'd simply like to put out the idea for discussion with TriMet, looking into how viable that option might be for our region. If you really want to minimize those kinds of authoritarian contacts, that may be an option that would be workable. It's certainly an option worth exploring. So I'm putting that on the table as something that we ought to look at, obviously with the TriMet agency itself, and see if it's a viable option. Thank you.
Paul and Sonia.
Yeah, well, I think that this is like a perfect storm of sorts for transit, and especially here in the Portland region. I think it's a little bit, and I was going to speak to this under comments, I probably still will, but I'm going to keep it brief here. But we just got to remember that, yesterday a gentleman was sentenced for two life terms for killing two people and stabbing a third, had some severe injuries, and trying to protect, actually, those three gentlemen were trying to protect two young ladies of color. So, knowing and having friends of mine that had businesses along the Max line in Southeast Portland years back, and knowing that crime is a reality, right? And that having Metro and the city of Portland and the city of Milwaukee withdraw their financial support for any transit policing is not sending the right message to the public to encourage ridership. Coupled with COVID and all these things put together, this is and public officials speaking about actually, taking their foot off the throttle a little bit on public safety. I think it needs to be done a little bit more carefully and a little bit more thoughtfully. And I don't see, frankly, if there's going to be an encouraging investments in transit amongst these times, let alone the competitive nature with Uber and all of the other Lyft and services that are competing against that. There are very troubled times. So that subsidy for public transit might have a lot lower ridership, even if it was free. In my walk last evening, someone saw me and ran after me and told me that they're never going to ride transit again because of all these things combined. So that's the kind of thing that we got to be cognizant of. This is a far more complex thing. Our job is to keep our community safe.
All right, Sonia.
Hey, I just wanted to not lose this moment to second what Commissioner Humberston said, and so we'll have that creates two commissioners that are asking for us to look into this. I've been in many conversations with President Peterson and Christine Lewis and others about what would it take to further subsidize public transit. So I would really like to see where our levers of input would be. I think it fits really well into our strategic priorities. And Administrator Schmidt, can we somehow put that on the agenda?
Add it to the list, yes.
So Martha, I checked with TriMet.
Lost you, Jim.
I checked with TriMet and they know nothing about what you're talking
Okay.
about.
So that's good, because that's what I saw on a media release, and I wondered whether or not it was authentic. Thank you.
They don't know anything about it.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to make it clear. That's what I saw, but I don't think it's been verified. So I wanted to see if staff could verify that for us. Okay, thank
All right.
you.
You're welcome. We have a motion and a second, and
No.
what?
There was no motion yet.
Move to approve the consent agenda,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second? So we'll say Martha said that, even though her mic's off. All
Read her
right.
lips.
So would you please poll the commission?
Sure. Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Humberston,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
All right.
Commissioner Schrader,
And I,
and Chair Bernard.
Aye, motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is citizen communication, and Dylan Blaylock, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Very good. Thank you, Chair Bernard. This is the time of the meeting for general comment related to any county issue. If any attendees would like to provide a comment, you can do so now by utilizing the raise hand feature on Zoom, or if you're on the phone, let me double check. We do not have anyone on the phone. And Chair, just so you know, I have not received any emails thus far to relay after we take the Zoom calls. I do see we have one individual who's raised their hand, so I'm going to bring them in. Kayla C. Kayla C, if you could go ahead and there you go. If you could go ahead and provide your name, your area of residence, and keep your comment to under 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
My name is Kayla Colvin. I'm a resident of Milwaukee, Oregon since August 2013. I'm the founder and co-admin of Milwaukee Chit Chat, modeled after Amber Ray's Oregon City Chit Chat since 2015. My objective today is awareness and reconciliation with Clackamas County Sheriff's Office. On September 2nd, 2013, Clackamas County Sheriff's Office written directives were established superseding CCSO's Manual of Rules and Regulations of October 15, 2002, and general orders issued prior to September 1st, 2013. Concurrently, a message from Sheriff Craig Roberts was posted up to the CCSO website stating, "We can either shape events or be shaped by them. There will always be unforeseen circumstances that will require us to adapt and change, but I would rather follow a course consistent with our values than be pushed around by the random unfoldings of history." On July 13th, 2013, Black Lives Matter officially became a movement in response to the acquittal of Trayvon Martin's murderer, George Zimmerman. 2 months later, this is how our sheriff responded. Again, there will always be unforeseen circumstances that will require us to adapt and change, but I would rather follow a course consistent with our values than be pushed around by the random unfolding of history. Many institutions and organizations are now coming forward and addressing the previous ignorance to this Black Lives Matter movement. As a person in recovery, I'm a staunch supporter of the 10th step of any 12-step program, which states, "We continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, we promptly admitted it." This is a time and opportunity to ameliorate this public service institution and align with your vision for striving to be world-class. These times are hardly random. History has a profound need to be understood, analyzed, and never forgotten. As these patterns reemerge, it seems logical that we would open the pages of our recent past and reason not to repeat the cyclical behaviors of catastrophic events. So I did just that, and through my reading, I found George Novak's Understanding History. He states, "The writing of history soon engendered interest in the science of history. Once a habit of viewing events in their sequence of change was established, the questions arose. How did history unfold? Were there any discernible patterns in this flux? And if so, what was it? And what were its causes? History is not the achievement of outstanding individuals, no matter how powerful, gifted, or strategically placed. As early as the French Revolution, Corsair protested against this narrow elitist view which disregarded both what moves the mass of the human race and how the masses, rather than the masters, make history. Clackamas County is making history. The world is watching, and we need Clackamas County Sheriff's Office to reflect the masses, not the masters. I'm asking Sheriff Craig Roberts to please edit his statement to reflect the community he serves. Thank you.
Thank you. Dylan?
I do see Commissioner has their hand up, Chair.
Okay, I put my screen down. So Sonia.
So Kayla, I'm not sure if you can still hear me, but I really appreciate what you just said. And I'm wondering if you could email that to us, because I would really like to read it as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Excellent, excellent comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Dylan.
If there is anyone else in the attendees who would like to go ahead and provide a comment, please raise your hand now. Seeing none, Chair.
All right, thank you. And with that, we'll close citizen communication and move on to county administrator updates.
Yes, commissioners, several good news items to share with you this week. You are aware of the GO teams that operate out of Emergency Operations Center. These GO teams go into the community to help individuals and families who are struggling with anxiety, unemployment, grief, and other emotional problems during the pandemic. We've received lots of thanks from people who have been served by the GO teams, including some who have shared with us. A mother who was very stressed, caring for a young son who was involved in a bad car accident. Upon receiving information from our GO team, she told our team, "You being here with this list of information is exactly what I needed today." Another is a parent who had lost a child, and as well as that parent being diagnosed with cancer. That parent said that her intention was to seek professional help, and she thanked our GO teams for providing resources for her. And as well, several families were tuned into the Clackamas County Writes Project, a program that invites young people to write letters and create artwork as a way of making connections with older adults. So during these very difficult times, it's easy for people to become discouraged, yet our GO teams are making a positive difference in the lives of our community. Next, the Department of Housing and Urban Development has awarded Clackamas County $20,000 in funding for the Foster Youth to Independence Initiative Voucher Program. This program provides housing assistance and supportive services to young people with a child welfare history who are at risk of experiencing homelessness. Clackamas County received the first funding of this initiative last year, and now we've received the second round of funding. So thank you to our Health, Housing, and Human Services Department for helping make this grant happen. I also want to recognize two local organizations that have donated to the Meals on Wheels program run by the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. The Milwaukee Portland Elks Club donated $2,000 to the Meals on Wheels program, and the Clackamas Rotary Club donated $3,000 to the Meals on Wheels program. So thank you to the Milwaukee Portland Elks Club and the Clackamas Rotary Club for their generous donations. Finally, commissioners, a reminder, you will not have a business meeting next Thursday, July 2nd, because that is the day the county will recognize the Independence Day holiday and most offices will be closed. That is my report. Thank you.
All right, so I have a question. Recently, we put our application in for monies that we spent dealing with the COVID issue. And when I was on the phone with the governor, she said the checks are in the mail. And then the guy sitting next to her said, no, we're waiting for some IGAs to be signed. You know where we're at on that? And my understanding is that the IGAs were very restrictive, and maybe we couldn't even meet some of those requirements. So I appreciate a report maybe on Tuesday. We're having a policy session, right? Tuesday?
You are. We did discuss this with you in executive session this week, commissioners, and Mr. Madcore updated you. Yes, there's a well, Stephen, you can speak to this, please.
Sure. There are some terms that the state is imposing on this CARES funding that was not imposed by Congress. And those terms weren't imposed upon Washington County nor Multnomah County. Some of those terms would shift the burden, significant burdens, to the recipients of these funds. We are writing, when I say we, the Oregon Association of County Councils is writing a letter today to the Department of Administrative Services, who's controlling this government, it's a grant agreement is what it's called. We're writing to them, asking them to modify their grant agreement and eliminate the onerous terms. And we're also going to be writing to the governor herself on behalf of Clackamas County, writing to her directly, seeking her support to encourage the Department of Administrative Services to lift those strict requirements and let the money come to the counties without any of the baggage that the state is attaching to them.
Yeah, I understand that that's what we were doing. I just thought it's something that the public should know. Of course, Multnomah and Washington County don't have to worry about that because they got the money directly.
Correct.
But we, who have to apply for it, are under some pretty strict requirements, and I think we've addressed that a number of times with the governor, and so far without any results. So thank you. Just wanted to clarify that. And we have Martha's up first. Your mic.
Well, thank you, Chair Bernard. I'm looking forward to next week going back to the office myself. I know that we've opened up to a point for the public, and we have all the protocols in place. So I'm looking forward to actually physically getting back into the building to, to do some work there. So I know that you're actually at the office now. I know you've been going in and out pretty frequently, but I'm really looking forward to heading back and, starting to do, I imagine we're going to continue Zoom calls, but it'll be nice to do it from my office at that time. One of the things I wanted to go ahead and mention is that with all the issues that we're dealing with right now, and Black Lives Matters, and all the issues that we're dealing with equity and diversity and inclusion, I'm going to recommend a book, and it's called Stamped from the Beginning, The Definitive History of Racist Ideas in America. It is from Professor Ibram K. Kendi. He actually now is at Brown University. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, and he is heading their department that studies systemic racism in our society. And I made a suggestion to join that he is someone who I think, and maybe I'm going to make a suggestion, Gary, to our diversity, equity, and inclusion folks. He would be a great resource if there's any way we could get him out here to pull together a real in-depth conversation from a scholar who has studied this and is now really seen as one of the key scholars in the area. So I don't know how we do that. I don't know what the cost would be. I don't know if he'd just come out because we asked him to, but he is someone who I think that we really need to read his research. This book in particular really is probably, I think, considered right now to be one of the definitive works on systemic racism. And I think it would be really great if we could get him out here. I haven't finished the book yet. It's pretty dense, so I'm kind of going through it. But once again, it's Stamped from the Beginning, The Definitive History of Racist Ideas in America. And I think it would behoove all of us if we get a chance to read it. That would be great. Other than that, I don't have anything else to share. I was on the regional conversation this morning with the regional solutions team and Greater Portland Inc. and all those folks, and we heard from all the federal legislative offices on what's been going on with relief, continued relief at the federal level with dollars, and how they're moving forward with addressing the COVID-19 issues. So that was helpful as well. Other than that, that's all I've got. So.
All right. Thank you, Martha.
Right.
Drive safely on your way home.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Fisher.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Bernard. I feel like I did my commissioner communication during the consent agenda, so I don't have anything else to add, except I will comment on what Commissioner Schrader said. I think it would be great if we all read a book, and then maybe in our Tuesday sessions, we spend some time discussing the ideas. So Commissioner Schrader, I'm gonna go online and order the book that you suggested, and I will commit to having that conversation with you. And if anyone else would like to join me, might take me, I'm in the middle of Michelle Obama's book, Becoming. I should finish that within the next couple days, and we can maybe schedule this, I don't know, a couple weeks, maybe. What do you guys think?
I don't know. We'll talk about it next week. All right. So next up would be Paul.
Yeah, I guess I too covered a lot of what I wanted to talk about. I believe about the public safety elements, and my surprise to hear, starting with the city of Portland, and then the city of Milwaukee, and then Metro pulling back on their public safety aspects of enforcement for those who break the laws. And I definitely think that it's responsible and timely for all of us to make sure that whatever public safety practices, wherever they are in their jurisdictional boundaries, that there is no racial profiling or prejudices, that you know, that the people feel safe in their homes, people feel safe in their businesses. And it's been very, very sad to actually hear lately about all the damage, the millions and millions of dollars of damage that cities have incurred, and businesses have incurred, and property owners have incurred as a result of some of the bad behavior, I guess. And all the while, I completely acknowledge and respect and concur with everyone's ability and right to peacefully protest and express their opinions. I mean, that should go without saying for a lot of us. It's our First Amendment rights, basically. But also be respectful of other people and do so in a legal way. I am, I guess, very troubled by just all of the, as I was trying to make my comments earlier, between the COVID crisis, between all of these things, how transit in particular is in trouble financially, in financial trouble. And frankly, as we fall into recession here, and hopefully we don't fall too far, that the deep concern that people's ability to just pay their rents, and as I understand, the legislature moved forward with giving more rent relief, but did not consider our request to help or bridge the financial impacts to the
Property
the property owners, the people that are actually own the properties that are being rented. So that was a little bit unfortunate. If I understood it right, if I heard it right, that's how it turned out. But again, I do think that, you know, of all the crimes that ever been committed against myself or my family or my property in all my years, you know, they were always crimes that were perpetuated by people that happened to be white, and that probably had a lot to do with the area I lived in. But frankly, the area I lived in had a lot of mixed, especially in my younger years. So diverse population. So it wasn't an exclusively white area by any means. But nor did any time I ever think that anything ever happened to me did I ever suspect that it was any other person but a white person, frankly. For whatever reason, I don't know, but that's just, I just didn't make any conclusion when someone stole something of significance or damaged something that it was, you know, done with any kind of any person of any particular origin or ethnicity. But again, I think our role, going back to what I said earlier, our role is about public safety and keeping our streets, our businesses, our property, our investments safe and sound, especially when it comes to government infrastructure, the citizens we serve, and we can't lose sight of that. So I think for the, not per se the optics, but from public perception standpoint, I think we need to make sure that we balance those things. And when we talk about defunding police, to some that might sound great, and to some others that probably sends fear of a lot of people. And I don't believe that everyone in the public safety sector has got a political bias. There are some, and that's not acceptable, and we're working on that. But that's where I want to end for today. It's been very tough between the reopening and all of these factors coming all at once. It's been very, very difficult to explain things to people, to explain what we're doing. And I think that's another problem that we're all going to have, is that all elected officials are going to have to explain to the public why it is that, you know, we are talking about this or doing that. And I think that we really need to be working with our all of us, all of elected officials in all jurisdictions, to come up with something that with whatever the topic is, that the messaging is balanced and that our perspectives are balanced and fair. And right now, I'm just very concerned, as volatile as things are and could be accelerate, that we ought to be careful. That's my comments for today. Thank you.
Ken.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to reiterate my thanks to staff for their assistance with our Fair Board and their initiative to have a drive-in theater down in Canby. Appreciate their good work and their expeditious movement of all the permissions that are necessary. I know now that the planning department's involved in the physical part of construction and whatnot like that, and really I'm looking forward to that being done and the first movie theater opening up. On my earlier comments, I want to make sure this is clear. I want law enforcement to be able to focus on what law enforcement is supposed to do, which is deal with people when they are engaged in bad behavior. And if we can minimize the contact between citizens and law enforcement over relatively innocuous things, I think we increase the opportunity to have a much more positive relationship with our sheriffs and police departments. We have done to our law enforcement community what we did to our school community. And that is, everything that we don't fund some other way or do ourselves personally, we have passed on to those agencies to do. And so children get sent to school and have to be taught how to tie their shoes because some parents don't do that. Or they have to be taught how to brush their teeth. Or they have to be taught what a balanced meal is. Those are things that parents should be doing. And we've asked schools to do that. And all of those things take time away from instruction of the actual curriculum. Now we're asking police departments to be out on the streets and sheriff's departments to be out on the streets and deal with mental health crises and other issues of that nature when they are not mental health experts. So we need to make sure that we actually fund the people who do that work and make sure they're out there and available. And there are already programs, demonstrably. They have one in Eugene right now that works in helping people that are in mental health crises that don't require the intersection of law enforcement and the citizens there. So my idea with respect to transit is to reduce those negative contacts so that the transit police stay focused on one thing, bad behavior. Other than that, they shouldn't have to be dealing with relatively innocuous kinds of things. We have overburdened them with things that shouldn't be in their wheelhouse, and I would like to see us make progress in changing that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And I hope everyone will be safe. We got a lot of work ahead of us, dealing with COVID, dealing with racial inequities. And I hope that in the next 6 months, we'll be able to make some real progress. And so thank you all very much for your thoughts, your inspiration. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.